I'm Audra Drablos. I work for Inmarsat. I am a Market Development Director at Inmarsat.
And here we are, Audra, at the International Tanker Shipping and Trade Conference, and a lot of interest in the room in terms of what you've had to say. How can improved satellite connectivity help tanker owners collect and utilize performance data to meet emission compliance regulations?
Well, I think they can do a lot in terms of having the satellite connectivity on board to collate this data, and that can help with compliance. There's lots of regulations now, as we heard today at the conference, and they will need a proper way of collecting that data and harvesting that data so that they can use it not only for compliance, but also to create a competitive edge for themselves in their market.
So, Audra, what new capabilities can satellite broadband unlock for transmitting engine and performance data from ships to shore?
Yeah. So, Edwin, good question. I think in terms of digitalization, satellite connectivity can unlock a lot of that for vessel performance. So in terms of remote monitoring, for example, we hear a lot from our customers using our bandwidth connectivity to upgrade it when they need to do remote monitoring. So that enables them to not stop, not have a port visit, but instead do everything from offshore, where they can actually be doing this while they're in operation. So that opens a whole new avenue for this type of work in terms of cost reduction as well as efficiency.
How will satellites support the shift towards greener operations through route optimization, just-in-time arrival, weather routing and other initiatives?
Yeah, another good question, Edwin. And I think before we had to rely on, we couldn't actually rely on the connectivity to tell us what routes to take, but now there are lots of apps out there that can help vessel owners predict the right route to take so that they can reach ports just in time. And that's what they didn't have previously when they weren't using these types of digitalization tools that are enabled by satellite connectivity.
With data needs growing, what steps are being taken to future-proof connectivity speeds, bandwidth and stability for the tanker industry?
I think three things there that you mentioned that are key to Inmarsat, which is stability and security. And the third thing that you mentioned, bandwidth, is also key to us. But I think for most vessel owners, it's important that they think of a hybrid approach to their connectivity, because they'll have different use cases, and those different use cases will need different technology. So I think key there in the bandwidth issue is this hybrid connectivity.
With cyber risks growing, Audra, how are satellites enhancing cybersecurity for tanker fleets, and what additional steps might be needed?
I think for cybersecurity, especially with the bandwidth that we talked about earlier, that opens the ship up to a lot more cybersecurity risks. So it's important that vessel owners take control of their cybersecurity strategy. It's no longer an option to not think about the ship and the cybersecurity strategy that it takes. So it's important that crew are trained as a minimum, but also that there's layered cybersecurity protection on board, like a UTM or an endpoint type protection.
So Audra, how can satellite networks collaborate to ensure redundancy and continuity of connections across different maritime regions?
So I think firstly it's important about coverage. Having a global coverage does help, that supports you in different regions, but also the ability to fall over to other networks, having this hybrid approach that I talked about earlier. That's also key in a redundancy. So for example, in some areas, some regions that are prone to lots of rainfall, like Asia, you would do well to have the type of connectivity, like an L-band type connectivity, that will help in those regions. But of course, in other regions, there may be other networks that are more appropriate.
And overall, Audra, how is Inmarsat positioned to help tanker fleets leverage connectivity advances to address compliance, efficiency, automation, and data-driven aims?
I think Inmarsat can help in terms of satellite connectivity, unlocking some of those key issues that are facing the tanker industry, in particular in terms of digitalization, in terms of decarbonization, as well as overall crew welfare.
And finally, Audra, we're speaking at the conclusion of day one. We have the drinks reception and dinner in prospect, so I won't delay you unduly, but how have you found today?
Very interesting. I think there are lots of challenges in the tanker industry, and you know, Inmarsat is there to support the tanker industry, and I think there are lots of new things coming up, and you know, we have to face that collaboratively, and I think I'm looking forward to day two.